From Austin, Texas, American Farm Bureau Convention, Jim Bartles along with Brad Rugg. Brad from Owatonna, one of the Minnesota Farm Bureau Foundation Award winners this year. And Brad, the actual name and title of the award was?
I think it's Extension Faculty and Staff Person of the Year for leadership in working with Farm Bureau on issues within Extension.
Back me up a little bit. Where did you grow up? Where did life take you as you traveled eventually into Owatonna and your work in Extension and at the State Fair in Minnesota?
Sure. Actually, I was a 4-H'er in Mower County for the 10 or 12 years that I could be in at that point. And when I went to college, the first thing I did after graduating from college is I was a 4-H assistant county agent, they called him, in Olmsted County in Rochester. Then I did some actually dairy product promotion work in Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, and Iowa for 3 years. In 1980, I moved to the World Dairy Expo, where I served as executive vice president for 8 years, had 8 shows there. And then I came back to Minnesota, where I was closer to home and closer to family, and I started as a 4-H agent in Steele County, and then was promoted to the state staff. I've been there for 30 years now, so that's most of my professional career has been with the Minnesota State 4-H staff.
And you're into at least, what, semi-retirement now, but what those 30 years with the State Fair staff, what kind of things were you doing?
Well, I coordinate the animal science projects for Minnesota 4-H, so there's a lot of animal science education work that I have done over the years. I've relinquished that part of what I do, and I'm still superintendent of 4-H programming at the Minnesota State Fair, and that includes animal science areas, but also the general project areas as well. So I have a staff of about 200. We like to think of programming at the State Fair as being sort of a full-service hotel with an educational component. They all have food needs, they all have lodging needs, they all have educational needs, and we're there to fill all those needs. We have about 3,000 livestock kids that come. We have about 3,000 that are from the general project areas as well as the expressive arts, and that pretty well makes up the audience, which is pushing 6,000. Those
10 days of the State Fair, that's got to be something else.
It is. It's 12 days.
12?
12 days, always ending Labor Day. It is a busy, especially when you start out with the animal science work, because that's the most intense, and they have the strongest needs and the busiest of the programs. But I've got a wonderful staff that have been, most have been around for a long time, who share the same passion around kids and making sure they have positive life experiences. We just want kids to get hooks and learn from something, whether that hook be a shop project or a beef steer or an expressive arts project.
Favorite story you might have from over the years?
Well, I remember we went through some H1N1 controversies a few years back, and we had an outbreak of it within our permanent audiences in the 4-H building. And so public health came in, and we had to sort of shut things down a little bit and figure out how we were going to reprogram in a kids building with not many kids around. So that was a challenge, and we worked through it, but hopefully that doesn't happen again.
We talked about earlier about Y2K. You talked about H1N1. There was Y2K. 20 years ago, we were all kind of worried and ended up not being an issue.
It wasn't an issue for us, especially the timing that we had. And I wish most of those big promised problems never turned out like that one didn't.
What are your plans as you start to head more into retirement?
Well, this year we were, I think they call them snowflakes, and traveled to Florida for a little while. I think after the second morning of walking on the beach, I figured that I wanted to turn into a snowbird, which I understand is 30 days or more by definition. So, we're starting to travel more and do some things like that. We have a daughter and a grandson, and our family there live in Hudson, Wisconsin, so there's more time to spend there. And, you just kind of lay back, and I have a hobby, which is cows, so I get out to a farm where my cows are 2, 3, 4 times a week, so there's plenty that keeps me busy.
Brad Rugg, thanks a lot. Congratulations again on your Minnesota Farm Bureau Foundation Award this year.
Thank you.
We're coming your way from Austin, Texas, right by the big letters where a lot of people get their pictures. Yeah, there it is, American Farm Bureau Federation, along with Brad Rugg. Jim Bartles here, Austin, Texas, American Farm Bureau National Convention.